Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 12th Urban County Policy Board meeting. We have a large agenda today, so we will go ahead and get started with introductions. If you would, please mention your name and which jurisdiction you are officially representing at this point, or whether you're here just for public comment or just to listen in. And we'll go ahead and start here in the room. I'm Glenn Young, serving as chair, Clark County Council. And moving on.
Lauren Hollenbeck. I'm representing the city of Camas.
Noreen Ibrahim, Program Assistant for Clark County Community Services, staff to the board.
Rebecca Royce, Clark County Community Services Program Coordinator, staff to the board. And then we can go online and we will go with Joe Walsh.
Good morning, Joe Walsh, City of Washougal.
Mayor Cole.
Yeah, good morning, Matt Cole, representing the City of Richfield.
Councilor Ferrer.
Councilor Ferrer, City of Battleground.
Stephanie Fields.
Good morning, Stephanie Fields, clerk from the town of Yakult.
And we have some visitors, Alyssa with Seymour.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alyssa. I'm with Seymour Community Health Centers.
Darius Fargan.
Good morning. My name is Darius Fargan, and I'm a citizen of this county, and I'm just observing today.
Max Booth.
My name is Max Booth. I'm a citizen of the City of Battleground, work for Maddox Industrial Transformer. Also visiting and hoping to make public comment today. Thanks.
Michael Torres.
Good morning, Michael Torres, Program Manager at Clark County Community Services.
Nick Ramirez.
Hi, Nick Ramirez, Senior Vice President at Seymour Community Health Centers.
Is there anyone I missed? Oh, Dale Whitley.
Dale Whitley with Council for the Homeless.
Anyone else I missed? Fantastic.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 2, which is public comment. So please keep your comments concise and respectful, and we'll go ahead and move forward with that. Rebecca.
Thank you. Darius, did you want to make any public comments today?
Not today. Thank you.
We'll move to Max Booth.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. We've been to the last couple meetings to kind of understand what's going to happen with the WIC building in downtown Battleground. And so I'll reiterate kind of what our hope is. The building is, at least as far as we can tell, pretty underutilized. It seems like most of the activities happening through there is happening at a remote work kind of situation. So our hope would be to kind of create a win-win situation. We're advocating that the building be sold at fair market value and open to the public to bid on. If we were the people who were able to win that, we would be inclined to work heavily with WIC to find a place for them to go. They could stay there the next couple of years, as far as we were concerned, while we made a bunch of plans and arrangements. We also don't think that pouring all the money into that building that it would need to get it back up to snub is a good use of those funds. We think there's a lot better ways to get all of that done. So we were advocating for a sale to the public at fair market value, and the opportunity to help WIC and Seymour find another better location that more neatly met all the needs. As we've said, the building is underutilized, it's under-maintained. It's quite frankly, it's a bit of an eyesore on Main Street. There's overgrown weeds and graffiti and things on the building. And so our hope is to help activate that space that would be more beneficial for the business owners that are on Main Street now, and find a place that was more suitable to meet more needs for the WIC and Seymour programs than right there. So I think that's about all I have to say today. I'd be happy to scheme on any possible solutions. I understand there's also considerations with the timeliness issue and having an influx of cash into the fund makes that all the more difficult. We'd also be happy to discuss ways in which that could be alleviated by timing the sale appropriately to give you guys as much time as possible to allocate those funds. So that's kind of our basic position and goal. I think that's probably all I have to say. So thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to make a public comment?
Great. Thank you for your comments and being involved in the process. We'll move to item number 3, which is an action. That would be our vice chair election for 2026. And currently, Mayor Cole from the city of Ridgefield is serving in that capacity. And I would open up the floor for any nominations for this year's vice chair. I'd like to nominate Mayor Cole to serve again. He has done a wonderful job serving as vice chair, if he's so willing.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do it again.
Great. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All right, we will close nominations and we will vote on Mayor Matt Cole serving as our vice chair for 2026. All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? Motion passes, and thank you very much. Appreciate your willingness to do so. Item number 4, approval of the November 10th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Chair, I'd move to accept the November 10th, 2025 minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And we're moving on to action to adopt the 2026 annual work plan with the 2026 calendar. Rebecca, would you just say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our annual work plan is something we ask that the Urban County Policy Board adopt. It just kind of gives us a roadmap for what we're looking for doing and getting accomplished throughout the calendar year. This is a living document that guides the work. It sets our meeting schedule for the year. As our bylaws indicate, we must have at least 5 meetings. It is subject to change as the needs of the boards arise or as we identify different topics that we would like to discuss throughout the year. But this kind of gives us a start for what that might look like. This slide is just giving you the highlights of what we'll be doing for 2026. Public comments, approval for minutes, program updates, those things will occur at every meeting. In January, we always have our election, which we just held. We'll adopt the work plan, which we're going over now. We're also going to have a presentation from Council for the Homeless for the point in time count, and that will be happening here shortly. We'll do an overview of our applications. We'll do a quick neighborly training for scoring those applications, and we'll continue our conversation around the county-owned building and battleground, along with a very brief presentation about our community needs assessment that the Community Services is going to be conducting. In February, we'll have our presentations for our applications, and then scores will be due for the applications by March 2nd. In March, we'll do our funding updates. That's when staff will provide an overview of the funding that we believe we'll have for this year of applications, along with recommendations for this applications that we have received. April is also Community Development Week, so we will try to put something together to celebrate the work that the nation has been doing around community development. In June, we will give you an update on our action plan submission. We'll do a presentation from Clark County staff around the climate project and changes to policies that are coming. We'll have our quarterly reports, and we'll start the very beginning of our RFA planning for next year. We'll also plan on meeting in September, where we'll give you the draft consolidated annual performance evaluation report. We'll do an outcome review. We'll look at the request for applications and any changes that staff are proposing for the next RFA. We'll have Council for the Homeless back to do a report on the annual report versus doing the point in time count presentation, and we'll do quarterly report review. We'll also meet in November, where I'm hoping to do a training on Section 3. We'll go over the quarterly reports. We'll start doing some planning for next year's Urban County Policy Board. New this year, staff would like to start doing an annual Urban County Policy Board orientation for any of the board members that would like to participate, current board members or new board members that happen to come on. We'll plan on holding that virtually during the time we would normally meet in December for the Urban County Policy Board, but it is not a regular meeting. It is not going to be recorded. It is not going to, we're not going to be here. Staff will be at our desks. If anyone pops in, we'll do the orientation at that time. This will just kind of give us a more regular opportunity for board members to kind of get that orientation of the board. And maybe it might be an update on making sure that they're understanding of what we're doing here with the Urban County Policy Board. So with that, I will turn it back over to Councilor Young for a motion to accept.
Great. And I would also just comment that we have anything for the good of the order at the end of each meeting. So if there's ever any suggestions for items to add to any agenda, those can always be adjusted as needed. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and is seconded to approve item number 5, which is our annual work plan and calendar for 2026. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Great, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward to item number 6, Council for the Homeless point and time count presentation, and that is Dan, correct?
Dale.
Dale, sorry.
Yeah.
That's correct. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. Again, my name is Dale Whitley. I'm the Chief Systems Officer with Council for the Homeless, and I also coordinate the annual point in time count. Yeah, can we get the next slide? So the point in time count, what is it? So it is a single night snapshot. Normally it takes place the last Thursday in January. In 2025, it took place on January 30th. It is a requirement that it always takes place within the last 2 weeks of January, and we've just normally always done it on that last Thursday. We do also try to coordinate it with the other counties in Washington State so that we're all doing it on the same night. So that's one of the reasons why it's usually that last Thursday. And it is, like I mentioned, a requirement by both HUD and Washington State Department of Commerce that we do this annual count. It only counts people experiencing literal homelessness by HUD's definition. So when we look at the numbers in a little bit, just bear in mind that does not include people that are doubled up living with family or friends. These are people that are for the unsheltered side that are living outside or in their cars, those types of little homeless situations. Every year we try to introduce new tools or increase the effectiveness of the count, however we can. And but bear in mind, it is always just kind of the best. We like to say it's the best available data. So we always know that there's probably, you know, there may be one or two people out there, you know, or a certain number that we weren't able to get to on that night. But if we use the same methods every year, it should be an apples to apples comparison trend wise to be able to see if trends are going up or down. And part of the reason why we do that is to, or the benefit of the point in time count is to hopefully enable better planning, review funding, to see if there's certain, population groups that are in a growing need of more assistance. Next slide, please. So for the data sources for the point in time count, there's kind of two main halves to the point in time count results. There's the sheltered count, which is a count of everyone who's in our emergency shelters in Clark County. And we have excellent emergency shelter coverage in our HMIS system. So we are able to pretty much get all those numbers from the HMIS system for who was staying in emergency shelters on that night. And when we see growth on the sheltered side of the count, because those shelters are almost always completely full, it's an indicator that we had new additional beds that came on board, or vice versa. If there's a reduction, a lot of times it may be because shelter beds were unavailable for whatever reason during the night. The unsheltered count is where a lot of the effort has to go into the planning and implementation of the count, because that's where we're actually going out and counting people where they are outside. So we're able to get that information through multiple sources. One is the non-HMIS service locations. So places where people may go to get a service that day, but they're not on HMIS. So libraries are one, food banks, places like that. We'll try to get surveys and volunteers there to ask anybody who's attending those services on that day if they're willing to complete a survey. We also get information from the school district homeless liaisons. So every school district has staff assigned, and they keep records of their students and families who are experiencing homelessness. So they are able to provide information for us to be included in that side of the count. And then a big part of the effort goes into that street count. So that's where we send out teams all throughout the county to check known locations and try and survey everybody that they can find on that day. So that's the big effort that goes out. It's really community-wide event to get all these teams all out there to check all these locations to try and get everyone counted. And then one of the main sources of information that we get on that day is from the Project Homeless Connect event. So that is a one-day service fair that we do on the day of the point in time count. And so it's this great event where we promote it in advance, try to get as many people there as possible. And while they're there, they can get haircuts, clothing, shoes, dental care, vision care. They can get a pair of glasses, get their vision checked and get a pair of glasses, and pet care and a hot meal. And then it'll also be filled with many of our various service providers, so they can also connect with our providers and get a housing assessment or get connected to some other services on that day. So yeah, like I said, we try to get everybody to get to that Project Homeless Connect event and be able to take part in all those services. And of course, everybody who attends, we ask them to complete a survey form, so we collect all the information we need for the point in time count as well at that event. All right, next slide, please. So this is an overview of the 2025 point in time count results. You can see that biggest number up there in the upper left corner. That is the total number of people that were counted on that one day, January 30th. It was 1,530, and that was a 12% increase from the previous year's count, which took place on January 25th of 2024. So I mentioned that there's the sheltered side and the unsheltered side. So the breakdowns on those, there were 742 people that were counted as unsheltered. So that would be living on the streets in their cars, those types of situations. And that was 11% increase from 2024. And the number of people that were in emergency shelter also was an increase at 16%. And then transitional housing was a 7% increase. Of those 1,530 people, 42% of them identified as women and 57% as men. And then underneath that, you can see the number of people experiencing chronic homelessness was 439 in 2025. So chronic homelessness is a specific HUD definition where they both have to have it. One, they have to have a disability, some type of physical, mental, some sort of disability, and they also have to have experienced homelessness for either over a continuous year, or have had 4 episodes of homelessness within 3 years. So they experienced homelessness, they became housed, for whatever reason, they returned to homelessness, and that has happened multiple times. So that chronic homeless definition goes to those people that are, for whatever reason, harder to keep housed or to keep stably housed. There were 152 people in 2025 in the point in time count who identified as survivors of domestic violence, and that was a 55% increase from the previous year, where it was 98 people. And then there's a chart down below in the lower right with racial demographics, and we'll have a separate chart on that later. So we'll just skip that for now. Next slide, please. So the increase of people within that sheltered count, there were 560 people counted in emergency shelters in 2025, and that was an increase from 483. And that 16% increase was largely due to, like I mentioned previously, we had more shelter beds available on that day. So that Art Center winter shelter was a new shelter that was open last year. And that's where a lot of those additional people were counted. And there was also a 7% more people in transitional housing. Next slide, please. So in the unsheltered side of the count, the 742 people in 2025 was an 11% increase from 2024 again. And this increase was mostly different as far as like the household types of who was making up that increase. It was mostly driven by growth in the number of unsheltered single and couple households. So there were 532 of the people in those household types in 2025 compared to 463 in 2024. So the unsheltered families, that there were actually only family members increased by 2 households. So there were 2 more households in 2025 than in 2024. That's why, that increase was mostly on the single and couple household types. And in 2024, there were families were up by 19. And so, that was good that there were only 2 additional households in 25 as compared to 2024. Yeah, next slide. And for seniors in the 2025 count. So ever since 2017, we had been seeing this consistent annual growth in the number of seniors age 62 and over experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So there were only three counted in the 2017 point in time count, and that had increased to 40 by 2023. So for a while there was like tripling every year, which was very concerning. And then additional shelters and shelters where seniors were prioritized eventually contributed towards a reduction in that growth of the unsheltered seniors. There were 30 unsheltered seniors counted in 2025. And the sheltered seniors, so on the sheltered side of seniors 62 and above, that increased to 94 from 72. So as there were more sheltered, there were less on the unsheltered side of the count. Next slide, please. All right, veterans in the 2025 count. So the total number of veterans counted in 2025 was actually the same number as we counted in 2024. So it was 39 in both years. Last year's count was an increase. Back in 2024, I say last year, actually 2 years ago now, 2024 showed a 29% reduction in total number of veterans from 23. That number had fallen from 55 down to 39, and then 39 again in 2025. So there have been a lot of efforts around housing veterans, both from the VA and then the Council for the Homeless and all the veteran partner agencies to try and coordinate through our VBNL meetings. So, it's possible that we're seeing some good progress there. So this is the slide we were gonna come back to later. So homelessness affects BIPOC people at a disproportionate rate. So you can see these are the percentages from the point in time count of people who identified with these racial demographics. 38%. So 38% of everybody counted in the 2025 point in time count was identified as a person of color. And that is compared to, from the latest census, 25% of Clark County's population identify as people of color. So you can see that higher percentage of people that are experiencing homelessness. Next slide, please. I think maybe go to the next one real quick. If there's another, you might have got these two out of order. Is there one about the? Oh no. Okay. All right. Well, I thought there was one in there about the 2026 point. So So we are currently planning for the 2026 point in time count, which will take place this year. on January 29th. So again, that last Thursday of January. And we've been held many meetings where we're planning with the different outreach providers and agencies that are going to go around to do those street counts, identifying those known fixed site locations to send surveys to, reconnecting with the school homeless liaisons to get everybody prepped to provide us that information. And the Project Homeless Connect event will be held at St. Joseph Church up on Andreessen. That'll be from 9 to 2 p.m. So we're trying to get a promotion going for people to attend that. And like I said, we're currently identifying the known locations to send our teams out to. So if you know of any locations, specifically if you're from like Ridgefield or Battleground or places like that, you can send my emails at the end of this slide. You can send me that information, and we can make sure we have a team out there to check any of those locations. Yeah, so that was a quick summary of the point in time count results. We have a lot more information that's available on our website. So if you go to councilforthehomeless.org, you can go to our impact page, and there will be a whole page dedicated to the point in time count that'll go into more detail in all the results and a summary of them. Any questions?
I have a really quick question, Dale. Do you reach out to any and all of the senior advocacy groups and brief them on this data?
I'm not. Yeah, I would. We do bring up this information. We have various different groups within the Council for the Homeless that do presentations at others, and so there may have been other representatives that have picked pieces from our presentation to present to them, but I have not personally. But I would if I have those connections, or at least make sure that information was shared. And like I mentioned before, the point in time count, it is a huge effort with all of our outreach providers and all the agencies and food banks and library staff and everybody who's working together to make this happen. So I just want to thank everybody for this opportunity to put this information before their eyes again, because it is a lot of work. And so I want as many people as possible to be able to see it.
Great, thank you. And I would encourage you, definitely, I know there are 1,000,001 things that Council for the Homeless does, but if you can get that information to any senior advocacy groups, area agencies on disability, local nonprofits, that would be wonderful, so that they can be aware, if they're not already, at least offered to, provide them with that input. And then I see, Michael, go ahead, Michael.
Sure, thank you. And there can always be absolutely more outreach to organizations, but I do know Council for Homeless has done presentations on point in time count to the Community Action Advisory Board, to ECHO, to Leadership Clark County, and I know this information has been shared with the Community Foundation of Southwest Washington and the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, and there's several others that are not coming to mind right now. So. Absolutely, Councilor Young. I think that anything we can do to make the information, both the annual data, the annual system data, and the point in time count as broadly as possible can only be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you for providing that information to us. We appreciate it. All right, we will move forward at this point to item number 7, which is 2026 CDBG and home applications, and I'll turn that over to Rebecca.
Thank you very much. So this is an updated list of the applications that we have received for the 2026 funding round. We received applications under public services for Battleground Healthcare, for dental services, Family Solutions for their REACH program, which is a mental health services program, and 2 applications from Lutheran Community Services Northwest, one for childcare services and one for health services. Under the asset and economic development, we received several applications. One application that we did receive a pre-application and they did submit a full application for is from NAYA. However, their application from the pre-application to the full application, they switched what they were doing to completely change. And so we had to disqualify them from moving forward because they are not they're not continuing on an application for something they originally intended to apply for. We have recommended that they come back for funding next year for that. So that's the difference that you'll see here in the application list of applications. One other minor change, as we reviewed the applications, we realized that the application for Evergreen Habitat for Humanity is really only suited for home funding, not for CDBG funding. Home buyer activities are the one area or one of the few areas that we can actually fund with either CDBG or home. So we try to keep it as flexible as possible. However, they're looking to purchase brand new built homes, which really falls under a home activity. It's not eligible under CDBG. So when we get to the award stage of doing the applications, once we see what the scoring looks like, we will propose how that would look like with all of the funding that we have available.
So are we maintaining it as a CDBG application and looking at it at the end, or has it been changed to a home application?
So in the application phases, we don't designate home versus CDBG. We just, most activities only fall under one, so we can easily align it and let you know how much has been requested for CDBG or for home. So this one just looks a little bit different, but it will be based on what the scoring is and where it. Thank you. I'm sorry, my microphone started being very weird. So where it ranks in the program for asset and economic development will determine if it gets funded. And then if it does score high enough for funding, then we would just put in home funding instead of CDBG funding. That's how that one will work specifically. Typically, we have a little bit more flexibility so we can try to fund as many applications as we possibly can. And that will still be what we're doing, but it will be based on the ranking of the applications under the Asset and Economic Development Program.
Great. And then if I could, just one more quick question. And I'm curious, so the public facilities, we only have one application, which traditionally I think we have seen more. Is that because I think we reduced the amount of funding for that category? Is that correct? And then on top of that, all the new rules and restrictions. Can you just kind of give a little tidbit on that?
Yeah, so we actually didn't have any new applications under public facilities and neighborhood improvements. What we had determined was to get funding spent as quickly as possible to try to meet our next timeliness deadline is to use our 2026 funds to fund an application that was behind in moving forward, and then using those dollars. So we plopped this in here just so we can see that we do have those funds set aside for the Battleground project because they are holding off on moving forward until they get the 2026 funds. In that determination by the board, we knew there wouldn't be very much funding left over in the category and opted not to accept any applications this year only under public facilities and neighborhood improvement. So this is really just to show that we do know that we have those funds, that we will be setting them aside with the 2026 funds.
Okay, and how does that work with the 2024 funds? So
those funds were moved to the homeowner rehab program because those could get spent really quick.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll get them out and meet our timeliness requirements.
Yes. Okay. Appreciate that effort for timeliness for sure. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
Not a problem. And then under our affordable housing and homelessness, we had 2 applications for construction projects or new affordable housing. One is the Columbia River nonprofit River in Maine. They applied last year. They're coming in again for some additional funding for that project. And then Foundation for the Challenge, they're looking to acquire new properties. And then we had 4 tenant-based rental assistance applications come in this year. So you'll be seeing these applications get released to you at the end of the month to start looking at reviewing and scoring all of those applications. So every year we like to do a quick neighborly scoring refresher for you guys so that you just have a reminder of how that process works. We will send you an email with all of the information that you're going to need. You're going to get an email from the neighborly system that says you have access to all of the applications. You should get two emails, one for the Asset and Economic Development Program, and then one for the Affordable Housing and Homelessness Program from Neighborly, giving you access to all of the applications. We'll send in an email, some basic instructions, along with the funding guides that we released at the beginning of the request for application. These are really important for both the applicant, but also for the Urban County Policy Board scoring members. It breaks down all of the questions on what they should have included in their response and a way for you to understand how to score those low, medium, and high ranked scoring questions. And we will also send to you an overview with some staff comments about each of the applications. So you'll have some additional context from staff. When you go into Neighborly, you're going to click on the Complete Scoring tab on the left-hand side that allows you to start the scoring process. And then what you'll see is a screen that looks similar to this one here. It's like a scoring report. It should have the information about each of the questions you should be scoring. Please note that not all the questions are scored for each application. For you, this year, it will be the asset and it'll be the affordable housing and homelessness that you'll see. There will be two sections, one set of scoring questions for the construction or those multifamily housing types of projects, and then there will be a separate set for tenant-based rental assistance. So if you're scoring River and Main, you do not need to score anything under the tenant-based rental assistance. Conversely, if you're scoring the tenant-based rental assistance application, you don't need to put any scores in the construction side because the questions won't align, the scores won't align. Some key aspects to consider when you're reviewing your applications. These funds are really meant to serve our low-income communities. So what is the impact on those populations? Evaluate how well the proposed project targets and directly benefits those communities. Look at the community engagement that they had as they were putting together their application and for what type of program or project they're doing. Assess the level of community input and involvement, analyze whether the proposal identifies and actively works to dismantle barriers that may hinder specific populations from having opportunities to participate in these programs or to get housing, things like that. Look at and ensure that they're using a data-driven approach to the work that they're doing. Look for evidence that the applicant uses data to understand the disparities within the target communities. Look at the organizational capacity to do the work that they're proposing to do along with the community representation, and evaluate whether the organization has the experience, the expertise, the internal structures necessary to effectively meet the program and project goals and funding requirements. Do the goals meet what the funding amount looks like? Does it seem that it's a possible application that they can serve that many households or build that many units with the amount of funding that they're proposing in their application for consideration? The other thing that we want to make sure that we're aware of is looking at scoring bias. So bias is that prejudice in favor or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that really is unfair. There's several different types of scoring bias. There's the affinity bias, where you have a more favorable opinion of those similar to us, like race, gender, ethnicity, that type of thing. There's the halo or horn effect, which is the tendency for a single positive or negative rating to cause raters to inflate or deflate all the other ratings. Score each question on the merits of that question instead of one perceived notion or comment that they have in the full application. The contract bias is when you're comparing applications with one another rather than looking at each application as its own independent application individually. This can cause raters to overestimate or underestimate the program's capacity to do the work. The central tendency bias causes some raters to score every question on a scale near the center rather than, oh, you get full marks here, but you get middle ranks here, low ranks here. Just trying to stay kind of in the same middle of the road scoring. That's called a central tendency bias. And then the leniency or strictness bias is consistently scoring them either high or too low. So really, you should be scoring every question on the merits of those. And that's really why one of the reasons we provide that funding guide for you is to help you understand what the response is and help you determine where in that area of 0 to 10 points where you should be kind of aiming what your scores look like. And then the final bias is called the recency bias. This leads to overestimates or underestimates of the organization being scored if they had a recent good streak or a bad streak. They didn't perform as well last year as they had intended to do for whatever that reason is. So you score them low, or you thought they did really well this last year, so you want to give them higher streaks. Really make sure that your scoring is focused on the application and what they are proposing. So to avoid that scoring bias, kind of as I've been talking about, one of the things, look at your conflict of interest. We will be sending out a DocuSign document for you to certify that you do not have a conflict of interest when you're scoring these applications. Conflict of interest might be if you are on the board of an agency that is applying for funding. So this is where we would ask that if you have a conflict of interest, it doesn't mean that you can't score all of the applications. We would mitigate that by removing you from scoring specific applications or specific categories. Conflict could be if you have some sort of financial benefit from this organization getting funded, that type of thing. So we want to really make sure that we are aware and can mitigate any conflicts that may come and ensure that we have an open and transparent process from the start to finish of our application process. For that bias in scoring, again, focus on the content of the application, not outside knowledge that you have of the agency. Score each application and question separately from the others and not as a comparison. And that is what I have for our overview of the applications and Neighborly. Any questions?
Doesn't sound like there's any questions. Thank you. Appreciate it, Rebecca. I would just note, I didn't see that date in the paperwork. It may have been there. I know that March 2nd is when our scoring is going to be due. When is Bonfire going to be opened up to us to start?
Yeah, so we use Neighborly for the
Neighborly, that's right. Yeah.
And we are hoping to have them to you open by January 30th.
Okay.
We are sending out technical requests for technical corrections today. We're giving applicants 2 weeks to do that. So we should have them by the 26th. And then we just want to make sure that everything's been done before we open it up to you guys. So hopefully earlier than the 30th, but the 30th is we will have them open for you.
Okay, and just a tip for anyone that's new to the board, I don't recall if we have anybody new here at this moment, but March 2nd comes up very quickly. And for me personally, when there's such a large span before when we can start and when it's due, you kind of have this thought in your, oh, I got time. So make sure and put some reminders in your calendar as you go on so that March 2nd date doesn't come up.
Absolutely.
As a surprise, yeah.
And I highly recommend scheduling around a half an hour to 45 minutes for every application to review. Some of them then will go faster than that, but that gives you kind of an idea of what that looks like, especially our bigger like River and Main. There's a lot of supporting documents that you can review and look at as you're going through there. Another recommendation is opening up the funding guide along with Neighborly. We can send you a PDF of all of the applications if you would prefer, if that would be helpful to have that also open. And then you can just have Neighborly open to what the scoring component of it is. So, anything that we can do to help you with the scoring process, we will do for you.
And having access to two monitors at least is very helpful too, because you can have the scoring open and the application on the other and not have to switch back and forth. So just some tips there. All right, I didn't hear any other questions. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Oh,
I have a couple of printed funding guides. If any of the UCPB members would like a physical copy, I can either mail them to you or plan to be in office and give them to you in person. You can just reach out to me, Noreen Ibrahim. Thank you.
thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move to item number 8, which is the county-owned building discussion. And well, why don't I go, Rebecca, could you give just a short recap for public purposes?
Absolutely. So this is a continuation from our October and November meetings. We are requesting the Urban County Policy Board provide a recommendation to the Clark County Council on the next steps for handling this building. The county-owned building was purchased with CDBG funds back in 1993 and has been leased to CMAR since 2009. And they've been providing WIC services in the building for the last many years. It is in need of significant renovations. In 2019, the Meng report indicated $1.7 million worth of repairs to the building. They did receive $200,000 for renovations from CDBG funds in our last application round in 2025. And it has been submitted to Senator Murray and approved by Senator Murray's office for congressionally directed spending of $1.7 million. That will only be approved once a full appropriations at the federal level is approved, and it has to be included in that. So we still don't know if it's been, if it will get those additional funds, but Senator Murray's office has slated it as one of the projects that they would like to see move forward for congressionally directed spending for that. We've provided 3 options for the board to review we've added some comments here so that you can see what those discussions have looked like over the last couple of months. Option 1 is to sell the building to CMAR for $1 with a 5-year minimum restricted use covenant. This would not affect the county's timeliness issues that we have been battling with for the last 4 years. There would be no additional investments needed by the county, so that $200,000 in CDBG funds and the congressionally expended dollars would not be invested in the building. CMAR would make those renovations needed to the building. They can do it at a lower cost because they wouldn't be subject to prevailing wage requirements with public funds. And they would complete those improvements in phases using proceeds through additional services that they would provide at that location. The 5-year restricted use period is a requirement for HUD and for use of public funds. So it's not considered a gift of public funds to be able to sell the building at $1. We did get special approval from HUD to be able to sell the building for $1 to a local nonprofit. Option 2 was to sell the building at fair market value. This may impact the county's timeliness ratio if it's sold before May 2nd, and it would still have a high likelihood of, if it's sold early, we would lose CDBG funds as we are 4 years untimely. If it's sold after May 2nd, there is a strong possibility that it impacts our 2027 timeliness ratio, regardless if we make our 2026 timeliness ratio. There would be no additional investments needed by the county. The county will incur costs to conduct an appraisal to sell the property on the open market is a requirement of selling a publicly funded building, but that would be the only cost that would be incurred would be that marketing and whatever is needed to complete that kind of component. And then CMAR would need to relocate services to other locations. They indicated at our November meeting that they would be unlikely to look for another location within Battleground, that they would likely move those services to Hazeldale or their Vancouver existing locations that they have. Those relocations would be, will need them to require DSHS approval to be able to move from the Battleground location. The third option was no change, status quo, and the board indicated during both meetings that that was not a direction that they would like to go. They would like to sell the building through option 1 or option 2. There were some additional discussions that happened. The assessed value is $467,000 for the building. The county would use funds to purchase another building was an option that we had. Funds would be available through the sale would unlikely be sufficient to acquire another building. And then it would be the same situation of not being able to charge rent. If we purchased another building through using the CDBG funds, we would, in a situation with program income, we would not be able to charge rent because it would be considered program income and you cannot use that for maintenance on the building. We could require the nonprofit to maintain building as part of a lease if we did do a purchase of another building with CDBG funds. The other option we talked about was conducting a targeted request for application, looking specifically for a nonprofit building acquisition. The funds available, again, would unlikely be enough to purchase another building in the battleground area. We also cannot guarantee that responses would meet the targeted criteria that we were asking for. And we also could not guarantee CMAR would be awarded funding through that request for application. And then finally, the City of Battleground submitted a letter supporting option 2 to sell the building at fair market value, which was provided to you in your board packets. So I will open it up to the board for more discussion, and then we'll come back to this slide, which kind of is succinct of the next steps we would need to make.
Real quickly, Victoria, I'm going to put you on the spot here on Battleground because I would like to understand, hopefully each of you have had the opportunity to review the letter from the City of Battleground. It was signed by now former Mayor Troy McCoy, and I was curious about your process on this. I don't know what the process is in the City of Battleground, but was this something that was discussed and approved by the entirety of the council, or does the mayor have latitude to just write a letter like this?
Yes, thank you, Chair, for asking. The process was that I took this to my board and we unanimously as City Council requested option 2. We all chose option 2, and it was, I requested staff to help me write a letter, and the mayor ended up writing one, it appears.
Okay, great. That context is helpful. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay, so if there's any discussion at the moment, I would welcome that. If not, I would like to turn it over to CMAR for them to be able to respond to some of the questions that we had for them and the research that they have been able to do in the previous 2 months. I see Mayor Cole. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just before turning it over to CMAR, I think as they talk, maybe it'd be a good refresher. So I know the county owns the building. I know that CMAR occupies it. Does CMAR remind me? Does CMAR lease the building and pay a lease rate?
I'll go ahead and with that, and if you need to correct me, go ahead. The county owns the building. It was purchased by CDBG funding.
Mm-hmm.
And so the issue is that we could sell it to them for $1 so that they own it. The big problem is that the maintenance, there's a lot of deferred maintenance on the building, and it was in the millions, that level of deferred maintenance. CMAR has said that they would be able to fund those repairs if they were sold the building for $1. But we also have the option of potentially purchasing or selling the building and using the proceeds from that sale combined with some additional funding from CMAR to purchase them or help them purchase a new building. So correct me if I'm wrong on anything there, Rebecca.
Yeah, so it is currently a long-term lease with CMAR. I think they pay $1 a year or some. They pay the utilities. They pay the utilities for the building, but they do not pay anything to us. And as mentioned before, any rent that we would collect, because these are CDBG funds, would be considered program income and have to return to the CDBG program to be used for another eligible activity. And maintenance on a building is not an eligible use of activity. So it doesn't make any sense for us to charge rent on the building when it's not going back into that building.
So yeah, and my understanding is just, like I've seen the building. I know that there's been comments on the deferred maintenance there. who was originally responsible for the maintenance of it? So, I kind of question, like, if CMAR has been an occupant of the building and has not had to pay really a significant lease rate, how did the building get to this kind of condition? You'd think that, is CMAR in charge of that? Because you'd think that as a tenant of the building, they'd be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of it. I know that things happen over time, but, like having weeds growing and having it kind of come, like just the basic maintenance, who's responsible for that?
I would say as a part of the lease, CMAR was not responsible for that.
Okay.
That's correct. So
County owns the building, so the buck stops with us.
yes,
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
Our internal department that oversees the building had requested a couple of times to county council for funding to do maintenance on the building, and were unsuccessful in their request for funds due to budget constraints for the county, and that's why the funding or the maintenance has been deferred for so long. But it was not CMAR's requirement to do those maintenance in there as a part of their lease, which was what led to the conversation of, if we were to do this again, we could make that as part of the lease that requires a new building tenant to
Right.
have to do those in lieu of paying rent for the building.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. No questions for me.
Great questions anymore before we turn it over to CMAR? Okay, and I know Nick was here last time, but I'm not sure whether it's Nick or Alyssa, but feel free to go ahead and let us know what you've been able to accomplish in the last couple months.
Yeah, just a couple quick updates. I think we'll start off with costs. So I did go back to our architect, who is responsible for reviewing any of the construction projects, potential construction projects that we pursue at CMAR. He did confirm that typically we are able to complete construction costs at, typically under what the estimates are for any construction jobs. And that is partially because of the prevailing wage that we do not have to pay under, and other resources. We have our own construction crew and architecture firm, so it mitigates the cost in both of those areas. One of the other pieces I wanted to convey is just our caseload. So we have in WIC, we have about 922 clients that we serve out of that location. I think we're operating under the assumption that there was a significant telehealth portion to that. It's actually the opposite. So it's about 70% of those patients are seen in person versus 30% via telehealth. And so, yes, there is that portion, but also there is that DSHS portion. So we're open, CMAR is open to any option outside of acquiring this building. We are open to other options. However, we do have to receive approval to be able to move services from this location to another potential site. And so I just want to make sure that that is known. Also, I wanted to highlight that we also have MSS. So we have 4 staff for WIC, but also 2 additional staff for MSS that serve clients there, I believe 3 days a week. And so those are the main things that we've been looking at. But I just wanted to provide a clearer picture on what is happening there, and the mode of services that those patients are receiving services.
One
go
quick question. Nick, can you clarify, in our previous meetings you had mentioned, would WIC be, or would CMAR be able to help in the financing if you were to purchase another building in Battleground?
So that was not our original intent. And so that's not something that we can commit to doing, but we're open to exploring possibilities. It's hard to say that we're committed to funding something without the details behind it, because we do have all those specifications that we have to abide by. And we want to do things efficiently as possible. So if that means us trying to get approval at another one of our existing locations, we'd pursue that. But if this is the most cost-effective and efficient way for us to do it financially, Meaning pursuing another building, we'd be open to that. It just has to make sense for us.
Did you investigate the market at all to look at some potential numbers as to what you might be able to get, what potential renovation costs might exist even with the purchase of a new building to be able to have that meet the needs of the program, and compare the cost of that versus the cost that would be needed from CMAR to be able to rehabilitate the existing building?
We did not get to that level of detail.
Okay. Well, the board, this is our time to ask any questions, clarify any details, and look at and deliberate and suggest a direction forward for the county.
Chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, looking at this, I think there's obviously multiple layers here, and I think that Battleground, has definitely expressed some interest in this parcel as as a part of its sort of long range growth plans as well. And all things considered, I am leaning towards more of the option 2, selling it at fair market value, but I also recognize that there is a significant population that CMAR serves in northern Clark County. And so for them to, if we were to go with option 2 and for them to relocate to Hazeldale or Vancouver, I worry that we would lose that connection to North County that has been pretty critical. I'm open to suggestions or discussion around that. Like how do we kind of find the win-win there where, you could sell it at fair market value, meet the needs for Battleground sort of larger planning needs, and then also making sure that we're taking care of people who benefit from those services. Forgive me if this has been discussed, but, Rebecca, you said that proceeds of since this was purchased with CDBG money, if we were to sell it at fair market value, the proceeds of that would be counted as program funds, correct? So that 467,000 less appraisal and probably closing costs or whatever, would have to be program funds. Is it possible to reallocate that to CMAR for the build out of a new building in North County? Or do they have to go through the program application process again?
We would be required to do an application process for any funds that we received through as program income for this. So we can customize a request for application and make it targeted, but we could not just designate the funds to a specific nonprofit.
Okay. I guess I'd like to see what the appetite is of the rest of the board on that as a possibility.
For me, there are 3 primary concerns that I think we ought to look at. And one is community need, and that would be the service that CMAR is currently providing. And to your point, Mayor Cole, is I lost my train of thought. The specific location, and if CMAR is unable to purchase new building somewhere near in the area, I'm concerned with there being a lack of access to services in that area. Really, the second thing is overarching community need, desire, and vision, and that I think is what is really pointed out in the letter from the city of Battleground. And then the third is timeliness of the funds. And I myself definitely am leaning towards number 2, but I do have the concern that we can all have the best of intentions on this and it may not work out. CMAR may be open to, they've suggested that they're open to the purchase of a new building, but there has to be significantly more higher level of success in that in order for me to support that option. well, the last thing I want to have happen is us to sell the building at market value and then not have a home for those funds. So that would significantly impact our timeliness issue. So if we are going to look at option 2, we have to have a very high likelihood of success that all of the process will unfold, that the building will sell and new ones located and can be closed on, and CMAR is able to come up with the funding for the purchase of that building, and that the program's able to continue. So I don't know how we get there at this point. And I'm open to any ideas and suggestions. And that would include staff as well.
The other thing that I would just remind the board is that this is just a recommendation to the Clark County Council. They will need to make the final determination on how we move forward with the building. So that will add to the timeline of when we were able to move forward any process with the building.
Thank you for noting that. I do think, though, and I can only speak for myself as one of the members of the council, that this is something that would need to be solid for me in order to support it when I put my other hat on.
So Chair Young, it sounds like what you're talking about is in the way of solid. At this juncture for this discussion, it would take a lot of probably good faith commitments from all parties involved. So it takes CMAR being willing to commit, I guess, in good faith to working through that as a solution, and then members of this board, and then, you know, as far as like where, you know, how do you make that work for them, as, you know, looking at a potential additional program application like Rebecca was saying, to make it work. But like, there's a lot of pieces there that are going to take, there's no guarantees at this point. We're not going to leave following action today with any sort of guarantee or formal action. It would just be good faith assurance that, you know, they're going to be working towards that, knowing that it probably couldn't work out. But I think what I'd be looking for is like, could it work out if all parties involved were really invested in a solution that meets those needs?
Yeah, I agree. The question is how we get there still remains at this point. You know, I apologize. Maybe my comments weren't direct enough in the last meeting. I thought we were going to have a little bit more research that was done by CMAR in the form of looking at the market and seeing if it's even realistic. We don't have that information at this point. Rebecca, I would like to ask you to remind us of any timeliness issues with this. Again, there's the May date that we're talking about. Do we still have more time to research and look into this and work with CMAR to see if we can look at this again? Or do we, how soon do we need to move forward on a decision on this?
So as long as the building doesn't sell before May 2nd, we wouldn't be accruing any more program income. The determination is what we are doing with the $200,000 of funding that we allocated to the county for the building to, if we were to go status quo. And it sounds like that's not going to be an option. So with the board's approval today, we could rescind the award that we made to the county for the $200,000 and include that in our applications, the 2026 funding. And that would at least move forward with getting those funds reallocated so that they're not being held up during the rest of this discussion.
And the application process is closed at this point, correct?
Correct, but we won't make the funding recommendations until our March meeting. So that's when staff will come together and let the board know how much funding we have available to allocate to applications. So
is it within our authority to approve a request that does not come through the normal application process? So for example, if we were to rescind the $200,000 and allow it back into the pool, but then we later decided that we wanted to, or, you know, later on we come back and we're looking at, we decide back to option number 1, can we reallocate that $200,000 to that project?
So I would say if we'd opted to rescind the $200,000, that would be the end of that application. My understanding, so I might have been wrong, is if we were to sell it to CMAR for $1 or sell it at fair market value, we would then at that point not be investing any more CDBG funds into the building at all, regardless if CMAR held onto the building or we sold it at fair market value.
Okay, and then when you say that, is that in terms of the authority of our ability to make a recommendation to the council? Could the council itself direct funding without, outside of the formal process?
The CDBG funds would go through a request for application process. So
Okay, so if no funding could go to any organization if they have not submitted an application?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Michael, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. So yes, the Urban County Policy Board does have discretion in allocating funds to projects that have been publicly solicited. So if there's an existing contract and there's been a prior transparent public solicitation via the RFA, you could choose to add funds to that contract, because things change, within that contract. So staff has the discretion to do that to about 10% of the project. Urban County Policy Board has discretion to do that above 10% of the project. So that's one thing. Now, in the case of this battleground building, that does not apply. That was not publicly solicited, when the county purchased it. The county purchased it for its own use, and then separately decided, after the fact, to do the lease to CMAR for services. I want to reiterate what Rebecca stated in terms of once a transaction is done, whatever that transaction is, programmatically, it's really not in the interest of the county to continue to invest community development block grant funds in the property, because when you do, you are extending the requirements, the federal requirements on those funds. So like if the sale is done to CMAR for $1, they have, after 5 years, there are no further commitments that need to happen on that property, and the county is divested from that commitment to HUD. If the county continues to invest CDBG funds in maintenance, for example, like if they decided to take that $200,000 as allocated for the rehab that internal facilities requested a couple years ago, that would add to the commitment, just the ongoing commitment of funds, and restarts the clock for any type of external commitment, if that makes sense. So, and the last thing that I think I'd say is, yes, as Rebecca stated, we absolutely do not want any program income coming in prior to May 2nd of 2026. That is when HUD will be looking at the account balances and making a determination of timeliness. If the sale happens after May 2nd and we get like a bunch of program income in there, it is highly likely that we will not be considered timely in 2027 and May 2nd, 2027, when HUD looks at that again. However, it will be the first untimely. It won't be the 5th time in a row. So like that making timeliness in 2026 will reset the clock for us. We will still probably have, some additional reporting that needs to happen with HUD. It will still raise some flags with HUD about why are we untimely again, but it will not be an immediate entering into talks about reducing the CDBG allocation coming to the county, which is what would be happening if we are untimely May 2nd of 2026.
Thank you for that. My thought also along those lines is there are two things to be considered when you say it's better for the county. There's kind of the county government, and then there's the county itself, like the people that live here. So yes, so I think it's tricky. And the other thing too is I still think it's possible to have essentially two simultaneous closes where you close on the sale of property that we own at the same time that you close on the sale of a new purchase, to where that timeliness issue really, if we did it that way, that it wouldn't contribute at all to an issue of timeliness, or am I incorrect on that?
As long as it's done quickly, usually it takes a couple of days, there's overlap, but as long as it's done quickly, the funds would go in and then go back out again, so that we would be able to do that. The only way we could do that is if the county then purchased the next building, and then again, we would be the owners, we would not be able to charge rent, and we would be in the same situation.
Understood. And I'm also concerned too, like the 5-year, I mean, I'm happy as, you know, at a staff level and as a board level to be rid of the process on that. But I also think that you're only requiring a 5-year commitment that the building be used for its intended purpose. So that's kind of a trade-off for me. I've spoken a lot. Let's hear some other thoughts from board members.
I guess I will go. I've been trying to be silent, Victoria Ferrer here in Battleground, because everybody on the board and everybody listening and who's attending this meeting today knows where Battleground stands. Obviously, we've already discussed that in this meeting. I don't feel like there's a need to reiterate the why we came to that decision. I think the concerns that I'm hearing from you today, Chair, and maybe from Mayor Cole, is the community need, the vision, and the timeliness as an issue. But it seems like timeliness has been addressed. So thank you for that. As long as we can get this done before the May 26th deadline, then I think that takes care of the timeliness issue. In regards to the vision, I might have misunderstood, but it sounds like the vision was regarding Battleground's vision with the plan that we have for our Old Town revitalization, and everything was done with that. I could be wrong on that, and I'm sure you'll chime in after I'm done and fix that, or let me know if I misunderstood that. The next one is definitely the community need. I think we all agree here on this board that, you know, there is a need for WIC, and we're not disputing that. We're just, you know, trying to suggest that there's better ways for them to spend their money other than paying that 1.7 million to fix it, and just finding another location that works for all of us. And I think that easily can be done. I will let this board know that I have spoken to a couple different people in this manner. I specifically reached out to Nick Ramirez with CMAR, and I also spoke with the gentleman that you heard today, Max Booth, with Maddox, to explore any opportunities for collaboration. Whether they've had the opportunity to do that, I am unaware of, but I did want to let you know that there was, I was told that it seemed to me that both were interested in helping one another out. I know that the gentleman, Max Booth, today had even stated that they would be willing to work closely with CMAR, allowing them to stay if they were. Obviously, applications are going to be sent out, which would bring me to my next question for staff. What is the timeliness of the application process? Because I know that you had stated, well, whatever we choose today on this board, this is just to, you know, put before county council. And obviously now they're going to have probably the same questions and conversation that we're having in this board. And so what do the dates look like? So bringing it before county council, how far out will that be till they see it on their agenda? And the application process. Can I ask that question from staff, please?
So it would take, I think there would need to be a process for the county council, at least 2 weeks for notifications before they would be able to put that on the hearing. I believe county council and Councilor Young, you can speak to, this would be discussed at a council workshop, then placed on the agenda. So we would be looking at 3 to 4 weeks minimum before it was brought to a county council meeting. And then there would be a process for doing all of the steps to work towards selling the building at fair market value. So at this point, it's unlikely that the building would sell before our May 2nd deadline, which would be good. So then it wouldn't impact this year's timeliness test. And then we could just move forward with that. If, as Councilor Young had mentioned earlier, if we wanted to continue this conversation at a future meeting. The February meeting is booked. We're doing all the presentations. We're already asking you to extend your time with us that day, but we could bring it back to the March meeting. And hopefully there would be some additional clarification on the ability to purchase a different building in Battleground or what that might look like. And I'm sorry, was there another question, Councilor Ferrer?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, couple comments that I would like to make. And I think it's important for us to consider our role on the board. And I place a high level of importance on the letter from the city of Battleground, but I think it's important for us to remember, you know, when we solicit, when we release RFA and ask for applications, there are no questions about the impacts to the community development, you know, kind of the issues that are in the letter from the city of Battleground. So I think it's definitely within our purview to take that into consideration, but it is not a high level, if that makes sense. That's my viewpoint on this. The way I look at it still is just from an overall standpoint. I want the need, first and foremost, is the need needs to be fulfilled. That is the mission of our board. And so any option that we move forward with would have to ensure that either we ensure that good services continue or that money is going to be repurposed, and then we'll be able to decide a new good use for it. I would like to see it. We have time. We have time. I would like to see if CMAR, I will say just from a, you know, my experience with purchasing and sale of property, this is going to be a tricky transaction. You know, if we're looking at to have like a simultaneous close, first of all, just in any instance, we all know that when government wants to purchase a building, it's difficult because that'll have to go through the urban county board, then it has to go through the council. There's not somebody that can sign on the line right away. So that transaction to begin with is going to be a little tricky in and of itself. There might be willing partners out there that are hearing this discussion that have a building that they could sell that maybe they could work for CMAR, but then maybe there's not. I personally would like to see if CMAR would commit to actually taking a concerted effort into looking to see what properties there are out there, reaching out to individuals that are part of this discussion that may be able to help in that, and then looking a little bit more into the financials to get a much better commitment that is, you know, I mean, right now, CMAR has said that's something we're willing to look at, but once they spend some time looking at what properties are out there and how much they are, and maybe looking a little bit better into what market value would be for the property that we're looking to sell, do those numbers still work for them? I think I would need that information in order to move forward with option 2 at this point. What does everybody else feel?
Chair, if I could, I would like, I'm okay with that. if that's what takes to make a decision, I'm reticent to kick this further down the road to March. I know we're pushing timeline, but I think that sounds like the timing still could work. I also would like to strongly implore CMAR if we were to do that, to come back with some actual hard numbers and some good research. I'm with you. I was expecting a little bit more from that this meeting because we've had previous discussions about this, and I thought they were going to come forward with that. So if we were to do that, it would just mean that CMAR would really have to come forward with new information or new research that they have to support that, and also maybe some other options. I know that Mr. Booth from Maddox has an interest in this as well, and maybe work with them to come up with some options as well, just to make sure that this is going to be that would be feasible. I don't think there's a way to do this an option 2 without some level of impact or disruption there, and so mitigating that as quickly as we could to find a good solution for everyone to win would be paramount if we're going to bring this back in, say, March.
Any other thoughts? And I would just say, I mentioned this in the last meeting, Mr. Booth is here. We appreciate you being a part of the conversation. He is a private individual representing a business that's very involved in the community and Battleground. If we were to sell the building, there would be no preferential treatment at all. It would be an open sale, everybody able to submit an offer. So there's no guarantee to them that they would eventually purchase the building. But I do appreciate having you as a part of this conversation and your involvement in the community. I know that hopefully you might be able to help in this in some fashion as well. And Nick, go ahead.
I just want to provide some clarity around what our position is. So with the position of our programs, there's a ton of different details that we have to consider. The requirements around that is part of why I didn't do any of the background work for cost assessments, properties. I feel like there's so many unknowns with what we're trying to do that it's really hard to identify buildings and spaces and different things like that. But also, I think our preference, so going back to how this conversation started, it was an option for us to be able to take over the building at zero cost to us, but with the understanding that we would make the investments in the building to obtain the building. That was our understanding, but now it's an assessment of the environment for purchasing a new building or leasing it or coming up with different options. And so that's not really what our intent or understanding was. I understand that things are evolving, but for us, we would look at our existing locations to be able to move our services there and still continue the functions and serving the same population the best we can with our existing properties outside of obtaining this one. So I just want to make that distinction and provide some clarity as to why why CMAR is where we're at. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer on that end.
Yes, if you could, thank you for that. I appreciate that information. If you could expand just a little bit. So your preferred option, if we did sell the building, would be to relocate into some of your existing facilities. So I guess what I would like to know, I think if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is that you're not sure, maybe you might be able to provide services in existing buildings as opposed to purchasing a new one. But is there still the possibility that you would come to the conclusion that you would, in order to maintain the level of services for the clients that you're working with, that you would need a location closer to where it currently exists?
There is, yeah. I think there's a couple of important things for us. And so, number one, so if we were to obtain a building, we would be doing that over time, making those monetary investments over time that spreads it out. Whereas if we were looking at a new building, that we'd have to come up with that right away. We'd have to invest. We'd have to do all those different things. And then we'd have to transition our existing departments into the new location. So there's all those different things that come into play, and it would be more investments on multiple different avenues for a new building. But with recognizing the importance of us wanting to stay in Battleground and serve those 922 patients that we have, we're not closing the door on obtaining a new building. We would just look at our existing options, our existing locations to see where we could best serve the population.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question for Rebecca. If we were to sell the building to CMAR for $1, there's that 5-year clause. Could they, I mean, are they completely prohibited from selling that building for 5 years, or could they sell it, open a new facility with the same purpose and intent? I don't know if there'd have to be a covenant on it or something like that.
So there would be a covenant on the building itself that it be used for a CDBG eligible purpose. CMAR could sell the building within those 5 years, but it would have to be to another entity that is eligible to receive the CDBG funds and
Okay,
provide
at
those
that location.
services. Correct.
Okay, understood. So if you go that route, then we are locking the building into similar services for 5 years at a minimum.
For 5 years, correct.
Okay. And Nick, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you had more comments or down.
No,
Okay,
I just didn't click the button. Thank you.
great. Okay, any other thoughts? Okay.
Go
Go ahead. Was that you, Victoria?
Yes, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just asking, so are we bringing this back in March?
My suggestion would be to bring it back in March and at a minimum, get a response from CMAR as to whether they feel in order to continue to service their clients, whether they could do that with relocating to their existing facilities or whether they would need to purchase a new building. And then hopefully if they come to the determination that they would need to purchase, maybe doing some level of effort into seeing if that's financially feasible. And then, you know, the idea of investing over time is something I don't think that we have heard. I've always been under the assumption that you could have make those renovations all at one time. So that's something I'd like a little bit more specificity on. Perhaps building or purchasing a new building is not feasible because of the amount that you would have to have right away. So maybe some of those questions answered. Any other thoughts? Do those sound doable, Nick? Is that something that you're supportive of working on? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide the plan for how we would renovate an existing building, excuse me. And yeah, I think I could bring that back to the table. And then, was there another one that I'm missing?
Yes, it would be a little bit more direction as to whether or not you guys could come with the upfront money to be able to purchase a new building, but also having you go through your evaluation and determination whether you can properly serve your clients by the relocation plan that you would be your first priority.
Okay. Yeah. On the first two, yes. Yeah, I think all three are fine.
Pardon, I missed that.
I think I can come back with the relocation plan and services to patients, the improvement plan for the building, and yeah, I think those are fine to come back.
Okay. And then just for clarification, Rebecca, this would be coming back in March, correct?
Yes.
Because February is fully booked?
Correct.
Okay. So is everybody in agreement with that? Are we on the right path? Do we need to hash this out any further? Okay. Oh, and it looks like we're a little bit late. So great. Okay, we'll move forward with that and then we'll look at it again. I appreciate your help, Nick and Alyssa. It is a challenging decision and we appreciate all the efforts that you're making and trying to make it work for everyone and for the entirety of the community. And again, thank you for the work you do as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So moving forward, item number 9. Oh, Wow, we still have some more, we need
This should go quite
Okay.
quickly. So if the board can hang in for 2 more minutes, we'll finish up
Great,
the meeting.
thank you.
And then if the board would mind hanging on for another 1 minute after I stop the recording, that would also be greatly appreciated. I'll turn it over to Abby, who is program coordinator working with our unit.
Thank you all so much for having me. I know we're over time in this meeting, so I'll make this quick, but I just wanted to let you all know about the triennial Clark County Community Needs Assessment, which helps Clark County and the Community Action Advisory Board better understand the needs of people in our community who are struggling financially and helps us prioritize funding for anti-poverty services. Beyond county funding and policy decisions, this report also provides information on the landscape of poverty in Clark County and is used broadly by local organizations in their program development and grant application processes. The report is shared publicly with the community once it's completed. So the first, largest, and most important part of this assessment is a survey of needs, which is now open through March 31st, 2026. This survey is entirely anonymous. It takes about 15 minutes to complete, and it's available in paper copy and online in English, Spanish, Russian, Ukrainian, and Chuukese. The QR codes on the screen can be scanned to go to the online version of the survey, and I'm happy to send out more information about accessing survey materials to you all after the meeting. So I'm here to seek all of your help to spread the word about this survey. We're really looking to get feedback from as many people as possible and from the widest range of demographic groups as possible. So some ways that you can help are sharing this information with your network, your constituents, your clients by email or on social media. I have social media templates and flyers available in all 5 languages, which I can share out. Also distributing the surveys to your communities. Again, there's paper surveys available in those five languages, flyers in each language. And we also have prepaid return envelopes if you're distributing hard copies of the survey so the clients can just mail those back to us at no cost. If you're interested in distributing hard copies of the survey, just let me know and I'm happy to deliver a box of all the materials that you need. Also, if there's any community groups that I can connect with, let me know when meetings are taking place and contact information, and I can reach out and get that scheduled. And then we're also hosting community forums this fall where we'll share back the information we gather in the survey for feedback from the community on how this information resonates with you and any additional qualitative data that you want to share. My contact information is there on the screen, and all this information is also available on the Clark County website if you want to see more. I have some copies of the survey from last time in the back of the room, or of the report from last time if you want to see what this project is working towards. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you all so much for your help and for having me today.
And I will make sure that we do include in the follow-up meeting the surveys, the flyers, things like that, so you can have an electronic version of those. And then you can reach out to Abby directly if you want to have any additional information to be able to move that forward. The only other major thing to talk about is the next meeting is our February meeting. We are starting at 9 a.m. instead of 9:30. And we anticipate the meeting to go to about 12:30 to accommodate all of the presentations for the applications.
Okay, thank you, Abby, and I apologize for you having to be so short on that. And then we also had public comment on the agenda.
We did public comment in the beginning of the meeting.
Yes.
And so now it's just to go to
Here it says, go to the order. Here it says public comment.
Oh, I apologize.
So, all right. If there, please, unless it's absolutely necessary, I would say we had it on the agenda. If there's any public comment, we'll take it at this time. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. With that, we will go ahead and adjourn. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next month.